Hello and welcome to the Artis Opus video. Today I'm going to be providing criticism and feedback for viewer submissions of their miniatures. You know, just average guys and girls painting their miniatures, and I'm going to be providing tips and tricks as to what I would do to improve those models, you know, base them differently, pick different colors, use different products, use finishing techniques, what people should be working on, that type of thing. I do not know what to expect from this because I haven't seen a single one of these pictures. If you like the video, please like, comment and subscribe. Hit that bell notification for future content. And if you like the video, please let us know below in the comments if you agree or disagree with my opinions. Let's jump in. I'm excited for this. Let's go. All right, these are looking great. This is from Nathanial Rage. For Christmas, happy enough to get D as a gift. Following your stippling and base coating, I then proceeded to do a black oil wash. After this wash, I brought it back the highest highlights using glazes and finished off with an all over matte varnish. Dude, good concept of light on these. Nice. Thank you also for providing photos of it in its various stages. This is really solid. Really, really like it. I think it's very, very, very crisp. That basing is a little bit out there for me. And you're going to struggle to have basing like that tie with your models hugely. I'm trying to think of ways that I would get it. The Necron himself is super solid. Basing wise, I'd make it less flat. So you've got a lot of that base is pretty much the same color. Some selective uses of washes. Obviously you can't do this now with the snow on top of it, but on the next one maybe, you could use washes selectively all over very thin down. Pop that all over the base, let it dry, and what it'll do is it'll collect in the recesses, and then you'll end up with a less homogenized, flat looking base. And that depth is, you're trying to exaggerate what you would see in reality. So if there is a stone here, even if it's a bright blue stone on a bright blue ground, in real life, you're gonna have shadows in the recesses around the bottom and stuff like that. So I'd absolutely do that. Dude, though, that's great. Like, keep on rocking. I do not like the transparent rods on Necrons personally, personal opinion, but you look like you're a good enough painter to be able to take those rods out, paint them, and then do a glow effect or something like that, and do a really good job of it. If they were green, they would contrast supremely well with your paint job. Clive Barnes, Auckland, New Zealand. I'm really enjoying your brushes. After saving them for special jobs for ages, I eventually took them on holiday, that's nice, and only used them. Once I got back home, I couldn't go back to my busted normal brushes. I custom built this Ezekiel, it's looking nice. I really want to take him to the next level and make the build shine. Any advice? Converter at heart, I'm loving your lockdown kit bashes, straight tips. Thank you for the kind words, dude. A couple of thoughts. Number one, love the nuance in that base. Really, really high level kind of concept going on there. So if you want your guy to have like a cleany white, then you could take it up a little bit higher, and you could involve a blue white rather than a brown white in there. I don't know exactly how you've achieved your white, but it's going to look a bit grimy in the recesses. If you were to use a cool, like Ulthuan grey or something like that, that will help it look crisp and stand out more. The blue you've got is, I don't know if it's a little bit satiny, but that could be affecting how the quality of the overall paint job looks. Black recess washes on the blue will do a really good job of separating his armor panels and make them look great. And then the next thing I would do is, if you check out our how to dry brush flames video, I think that could do an amazing job on the miniature. And then what you could do carefully, and this is scary, so it's up to you whether you want to do it or not, is really carefully dry brush white, and just the very surrounding area of those flames, you know, like on the, there's flames here and then there's a skull underneath, on the top of that skull, or maybe on the back of his helmet protection thing, cowl, whatever it is, you could have the lighting effect slightly light up that. Keep it very close to him. It's very easy to go over the top of this type of thing. I often do myself, but yeah, you could have the flames lighting up your model, and that is an instant way to, you know, add drama, add theatre, and add personality to a piece. That's solid though. Love the base in A1. Pop a skull on his base. Ugly Duckling 81 is next. Wondering why my dry brushing looks so rough. I should be qualified to help out with this, hopefully. If I'm not, I've wasted the last year of my life. Mine appears much smoother in my tutorials. Use stippling for base coats and highlights, dry brushing for edges, sponge for weathering. I mean, sponge weathering is A1. Really like that, good transfer use. You've used really good colors on the Land Raider as well, so your concept of the colors is really good. Couple of things. Okay, so it looks like you've kept the edges of your dry brushing or your first coats too dark, so you can see around the rim of that Land Raider, Crusader Redeemer, whatever it is, the edges are a little bit dark, and this is making it look patchy. They shouldn't be that dark. I would keep that for between recessed panels, where you've got one panel, you know, like layering up over another like this. This bit should be dark here. But if you're just on the corner, running down here of the land radius, there's no reason why that would be dark. So that's going to stand out, and it's going to actually make your painting look worse than it is technically, because your painting is good here. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. On the infantry, the stippling is harder. You have to just use the dampening pad more, and especially in your base coats, don't be afraid to, you know, you can take 2 or 3 to build it up. There's no reason why you shouldn't take the same approach as you do to normal painting. So 2 or 3 layers, just build it up. And if you get a good base coat, it should stop you from building up texture, which is then difficult to not have exaggerated in your final steps. Dude, though, they're solid, like looking really, really good. Like you're basing on that guy as well. Would maybe pop something on his base for contrast, even just a little skull or something like that. But really good use of color. Just stick with it. Practice makes perfect as well. Make sure you're always using the largest brush you can for the job with a stippling. It does make a big difference. And maybe for your final steps, step to a new brush that doesn't have any of your previous colors in it. So just like the last dry brush or whatever, let's say it's a very pale blue horror or something like that. I think that's the GW paint, just for catching the edges. And what that'll do is those edges will take attention, and you'll just presume the blending next to them is better than it is. I get away with a lot on my videos and in my miniatures because my final steps are solid, and it makes my previous steps look better than they actually are. It's all smoke and mirrors. Brandon, Bedfordshire, UK. Big fan of the channel. Binged your content through lockdown too. Electric Boogaloo. Here are a few snaps of my better painted and probably one of my favourite models, 30k Robrito Guilliman. The pictures are a little bit dark, but it looks to be very precise painting. We've got a black base rim, good. Unfortunately, his base has seen better days. I tried making a marble effect originally, miserably failed, and then just dry brushed up white over the top. Don't worry about it, mate, it looks solid. If you were to put a blue wash over all of that base, very thinned, you'll get that kind of depth to it that marble has, and you could then satin varnish it, and that would maybe, you know, retrospectively hack your way up to something that looks more marbled. It's not that bad, mate, at all. There are some wicked ways to do marble out there. I am not a pro at it, but I wouldn't worry as much as it seems you are. I think that looks really good. Let's pick out a few aspects of this. That cloak is awesome. You have not taken it high enough though, in my opinion. Particularly the bit that's kind of the top lip that's underneath the bottom of his backpack. You could take that up to just a slightly more pure blood red, or just towards orangey red, just in those sections. But man, it's really good. I think the eyes could be a bit more precise, but otherwise, I think that's really, really good painting. You should be super proud of that. He's meant to be shiny. A lot of the stuff I talk about is weathering, but it's not particularly relevant on this guy. So taking those highlights up to the next level would be a thing. Maybe edge highlighting his sword as well would grab some attention on it. And I guess to that degree, if we are keeping the metals clean, you could add a tiny bit of silver to your final highlight on your bronze goldy sections and just touch up the edges. He's a character, so it's worth spending the time on him. I think that would look really good too, but that's awesome. This is awesome. Paul Knight, Night and Sun Studio from Ottawa, Canada. Love those colors. That's wicked. Don't know what this model is. It's freaky though. I really like that. It's obviously got its own theme and is smashing that theme. So I'm going to provide what seems like pretty generic advice here, but the one thing that stands out to me is your highlights could be a little bit brighter. Now I know this looks pretty grim darky. That doesn't mean it has to be literally dark. Around the rims of your metal sections, you know, you don't have to do a flat edge highlight. It probably wouldn't look good for how gritty this style is. But you could do what I call a stuttering highlight. So let's take the rim of my coffee to help demonstrate. If this is your brush, rather than going around here like that, you'd go like tap, 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 tap. So you hold your brush over it and kind of stutter, and then you'll get chips rather than, you know, a clean GW perfect edge highlight style. That would look really good. And then you've got some places on his flesh, like the top of his left buttock could do with a bit of highlighting, and also his right quads. In the center of that, they would be a little bit paler and brighter. They'd be catching the light as it comes from above. Otherwise, dude, that is badass and looks freaky. Crying blood as well, just to make things even better. But yeah, it's really good. Sin City style from Gabriel Amaya in Madrid, in Spain. Well, okay, so we've gone from one very stylized model to another very stylized model. This is looking pretty cool. It's going to be hard for me to provide anything about color, but I do have some opinions on the red. So if you're going to go for something this distinct, and I love Sin City themes, I think it's badass, love the style of that film. A flat solid red with a lot of depth to it. Think like the GW red robes or red roses. The red looks a little bit washed out here, and if you're only going to have one color practically in one place on your miniature, make sure you knock it out the park. So I would start that from a deeper red. You know, you could work up a lot of the really cool reds you see. You start mid-red and then you wash down to black, or you start black and then you work your way up to a pure red and maybe just an orange highlight. It doesn't matter whether you start in the middle, go down, repeat the middle, then highlight, or go straight from black red, like red to orange red highlights. Either would be fine, but some more depth in that red and it looking less washed out I think would be a good thing. Otherwise it's really good. It's hard to tell, it looks like your photography might have deleted some of the layers, and it is hard to photograph stuff like this. Helping transition up to your edge highlights, maybe a fatter, softer highlight before your hard, thin one would help that transition on the way towards the really crisp final line. Looks cool though, really like it, good style. Wow. So this is Jim Hedberg. These are cool AF. A few models from my converted Nurgle Slaves to Darkness. Here you can see my Demon Prince, Chaos Sorcerer, and Chaos Warrior. Heavy on green. I'm unsure about the fur on the ones I have, if I should mix in some thin purple wash for next level. I don't know, like 2-to-1 contrast medium with Magos purple or something. Or do you have any other ideas if I need some more contrast? Yeah, I get what you mean about the fur. There's a lot going on these models, which makes it hard to criticize them. The wings are really cool. I really, really like the wings. Very nice, and his tail is awesome too. A lot of personality here. Okay, so this is a bit renegade, but because your models are overall green, what you could do to tie that hair in is you could get a really deep green. I'm going to use something that doesn't exist anymore, like Dark Angels, but that would be Caliban and green these days, I think. Dilute it loads, and you could just put it in the very recesses of the fur, and maybe that would help tie it in with the rest of the model. You could use the deep purple as well. Either would be fine. The cloaks are awesome. For me, if anything stands out as a bit off on these, it is actually the silver. It's the silver. You need that purple and the silver, in my opinion. You know, I wouldn't be worrying about the parts that you've mentioned. I think that silver doesn't fit particularly with the rest of your models. It's too clean, it's too blue. And in my mind at least, it wouldn't be like that on Nurgle models. Also the purple part of your banner, which looks like maybe washed silver, it just doesn't quite jam with the rest of your models, which have got nice flat base coats and then cool stuff going on over them. I love your little cross hatches on the robes and stuff like that, and your transitions through the colors on the cloaks are really cool as well. You've done a lot of conversions. Those boils should be disgusting and stand out, so balancing it all is going to be hard. Have you used a universal highlight color, mother color, in all of your highlights or anything like that, or in all of your recesses? That's a really good way to tie together a busy paint job. Let's say in this, it would be like a deep purple would be present in all recesses, or a deep green, and then all highlights, maybe you go up to like, you mix in a bit of pallid witch flesh, or, you know, like ivory from Vallejo is a popular one, anything like that. Oh, this is cool, nice. Sebastian Marrero, Orlando, Florida. Artis Opus Brushes on the miniatures, inspired by the tutorials on the channel. Thank you so much. First of all, props on doing as much work as you have with a transparent cockpit on that ruined copter, because I could not make myself do that. So props, good painting, solid concepts. I love the vehicle. I think it's absolutely great. I think that would be, you've got a load of weathering and stuff on the greys, which are supreme, by the way. Really good job, lovely chipping, all of that. Your red stripe, I think that would have some more chips in it. You know, going across these models, you shouldn't, if one section of it is that weathered, all of it should be that weathered too. And that includes, you know, like chipping or stuff like that. So I'd maybe chip the second of those two copters. I'd chip into the edges of that red line because it stands out as looking too clean with the rest of the model. Lovely swords. I think their reds and their blues could come up to a slightly brighter level. You've gone like, you've got dark blue and then crisp highlight around the edge of it. Could definitely be neatened up a bit, dude. But you know, I really struggle with edge highlighting. It's difficult on panels like that as well. It is really hard. Maybe holding your brush further down, make sure you brace, and then, you know, hold your breath or breathe out, but don't breathe in, whichever one it is, you know. And then for some people, and this is a weird one, for some people pushing up and some people pulling toward, either of those will be easier for you. Don't do it, you know, whichever way. Make sure you turn the model to fit to you, and then that might help with your steady hand. So I always turn whatever's in my left hand and keep my right hand in the position that it can work best. Same with airbrushing, you know, I don't move my airbrush around, I move my model around. And one thing you can do, which is common, I've mentioned it a couple of times already, you can put down a fat, like this is your edge, or this is your edge. You put down a fat edge highlight that covers a lot of it, and then when you put down your thin one that just catches the very tip, you'll have a transition. It does take a lot of time though, so it's up to you whether you want to do that for an army level. Those are really solid. Okay, Gareth with Captain America. Nice, dude. Marvel Crisis Protocol. Any thoughts on the blue? Should the highlights be more bold? The blue's a bit shiny, and I think that's the problem with the blue. So I don't know what blue you've used, or if you've used a wash all over it. I'm gonna presume some stuff, hopefully this is correct. So if you've put down that blue, it's either a bit of a satin blue, in which case use a different blue, or you've put it down and then you've washed all over it. In which case, put it down, wash all over it, and then pretty much like repeat your first stage of blue everywhere but the recesses, and that will ensure that you've got a paint finish rather than a wash finish. I hope that makes sense. That shield's badass though. Really good concepts there. Your basing, bring it up a notch. Not even just one stage, like I find 2 stages of dry brushing on that base, on the silver one and on the concrete one, with either silver or pale gray, would really help bring things up. And if you've got anything like that industrial gridding that you get, it's just asking for washes and more texture. You could absolutely go a little bit further on those. Otherwise though, very neat dude, and you should be especially proud of that shield and of the arm on your man, who's Bucky, whose name I've forgotten. Really good though. All right, Tony Wilder with a gribbly thing. What is it? It is a Zombicide Invader. Still new to the hobby, all comments welcome. Base coat using contrast paints, they're mainly dry brushing to build up highlights and attempted wet blending from the green to red on the tips. That wet blending is pretty successful actually. What I would say about this one is that it's too shiny. That's it really. I think if you didn't have that, and that's from using contrast paints, there's nothing wrong with it, but as I've mentioned, exactly the same as the previous one, the finish of models is a big deal. It should have a black base trim as well. The finish of models is a big deal, so maybe even hitting this with a matte varnish would be an idea, or base coating it a color and then using the contrast thin down over that, so at least if the contrast is a bit more dilute, you've got some of the non-shiny surface there. But it's pretty solid. What you could get also is, especially where it's got that kind of that build up on top of its back, carapace, whatever it'd be, I would take some purple washes and wash them into the recesses just to stop you from being so flat. So it's all about contrast in sections like that. If you've got a lot of contrast, then it's really helpful to things not just looking like a homogenized blob. And with the amount of texture that you've got on the top of the model, it'd be really useful. You could do the same thing on a base. And in fact, I'd be using pretty much the same color here, like a very thinned purple wash on the textured sections of the green. You could then repeat your green after that, or in the same on the base. It'll stop the base from looking flat and the top of the model from looking flat, because you've got all this wet blending and cool stuff going on elsewhere. You could really help improve it. Final thing, those muscle under sections that are showing through the carapace, you can see it on like his lats. You could add some little lines there to suggest muscle tone or something like that. It's a perfect area for it, and it's quite a forgiving technique as well and looks really cool. But yeah, the shine is the real problem on this one for me, and it's just as a result of using contrast quite a lot. All right, so we are done. That's it. Thank you very much to everyone who submitted their miniatures. Realise it's a bit of an intimidating thing to do. Hopefully the feedback has been useful, and for those of you who didn't submit, if you would like to, the web address, which we'll put somewhere, the email is submit@artis-opus.com. Anything you want, pop it in there. Do pop some extra info in, because it's really useful for me when I was critiquing people's stuff. You know, if you're like, how do I make this blue look better? That's really helpful. I can concentrate on that section of the miniature, and also let me know what paints you used or stuff like that, because it'll just help me give you better information for it. Any suggestions on the format, thoughts on the format, or if you've liked it or not, pop them below as comments. We will read each and every one, and then next time we do this, if there's a next time, if we get a good reception, we will be able to edit the video or adapt it, whichever way is going to be the best for you guys to watch. So I've had fun, hope you enjoyed it, and that's it. I think we're done. Paint your rims black.